As we mentioned, in a historic move, the House unveiled its newest impeachment article against President Trump today, saying that he incited insurrection at the nation's capital last week. Joining me now is MSNBC contributor and former U.S. attorney and senior FBI official Chuck Rosenberg. He's also the host of the MSNBC podcast, The Oath, now in its fourth season. Chuck, great to have you with us. So, as we mentioned, the vote scheduled to take place, scheduled to take place on Wednesday, that leaves President Trump with just 7 days left in office. What's the case here to make impeachment go forward at this point?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of reasons why it makes sense to me, even though President Trump is on his way out. First, incitement of a riot that undermined our democracy and attempted to thwart the electoral count is an astonishing bad act, Eamon. And so we have to condemn it in some way, right? And we're running out of ways to condemn it. He's already lost re-election. He's on his way out. And so Congress, I think, has to do something. I think it's a close call because I understand the argument that he's leaving. But here's my second reason. If he were to be impeached in the House and convicted in the Senate could also add an additional penalty. It doesn't always do it in cases of conviction and impeachment, but it can. And that second penalty would be to forever disqualify President Trump from holding federal office. And so because what he did was so bad and because it needs to be condemned in a very significant way, and because there is that possibility that another penalty will attend, barring him from ever holding federal office again, I think it makes sense to go forward.
The impeachment article cites part of the 14th Amendment about insurrection. Help explain this for us and our viewers, the relevance of it in what is happening here.
Sure. Well, the insurrection, of course, was the attempt by an armed mob to infiltrate the Capitol during the electoral vote count and to thwart that, to upset it, to stop it from happening. This is not something, by the way, that sprang up organically on January 6th. This is something the president has been talking about over and over and over again. And that's why inciting this mob to insurrection, encouraging them, telling them that they were doing the right thing in fighting for his electoral victory is so troubling. And so very simply, the article of impeachment that I've seen that has been introduced in the House, as I understand it, makes the case that when the president encouraged this mob to thwart the electoral count, it was an act of insurrection, an act designed to undermine our democracy. And in and of itself, I believe, Eamon, an impeachable offense. No question in my mind about that.
One of the other aspects in the latest article also cites President Trump's call to Georgia's Secretary of State when he asked him to, quote, find votes and for having threatened Brad Raffensperger. Here's what Raffensperger told 60 Minutes about that last night.
Well, I think it was obviously a veiled threat, or maybe a direct threat, but there is no substance of what he was saying.
Does the evidence from that call strengthen the case for Democrats? And could he, the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger himself, be called as a witness?
It absolutely straightens the case. I'll tell you what else strengthens the case, though, Eamon, and I will get to your question about Mr. Raffensperger. Remember, this is not new. This is the exact pattern we've seen from this president over and over. From when he fired the FBI director, Jim Comey, because he wanted to end the Russia investigation, to all of the acts of obstruction of justice laid out in Volume 2 of the Mueller report, to the pressure on the Ukrainian president to interfere in the election. The call to Raffensperger is much like that. It's this president trying to force his will on other people against the law and to do his own bidding. And so could Raffensperger be called as a witness? Sure. I can think of dozens of people who could be called as a witness if there's going to be a trial in the Senate. Remember, last time, the Republicans didn't want to call witnesses. This time, when the trial takes place in the Senate, if it does, the Democrats will be in control, and we could very well hear from any number of witnesses.
Let me ask you about Trump's inner circle here, because the New York Bar Association is looking into revoking the membership of Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, saying that he encouraged the riots. They state in part, quote, no person who advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States shall be a member. Your response to that, Chuck?
Look, I hope the bar looks closely at all of these. I'd want everyone treated fairly. I mean, it's incredibly important to me that we not let sort of the hysteria of the moment sweep aside the rules that we normally apply in situations like this. I think Rudy Giuliani has disgraced himself as a lawyer. Whether or not that means he ought to be disbarred is up to the New York State Bar. I hope they apply the same rules to him as they do to others. But what his words, his conduct are deeply troubling to me.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.